Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight or this morning or whatever time zone you're in. Thank you very much and welcome back. I hope everyone has a terrific Tuesday, and if you're ready on Wednesday, then awesome. So today is February 2nd, and we are going to continue the 365 Days with Jesus, which is our Reading the Bible in a Year challenge that we have for each and every one of you. And we're going to continue in the book of Leviticus, so third book of the Bible. We're now in chapters 15, 16, and 17. So again, it's Leviticus, which is the first testament of the Bible, the Old Testament, that is called. And we're in the third book of the Bible, Leviticus chapter 15, 16, and 17. And God bless every one of you. So Leviticus chapter 15 talks about cleansing unhealthiness. So this chapter was specifically about the bodily discharges from men and women. So, with women is the menstruation, and with men could be semen discharges and other fluids that can come out of our skin or in our body. So it talks about the different regulations that God had given. So, for example, if we go to verse 19 of Leviticus 15, it says, when a woman has a discharge, if her bodily discharges blood, she shall continue in her menstrual impurity for 7 days, which is the average menstrual cycle, right? A lot of us vary, right, as women. And whoever touches her shall be unclean until evening. And for the men, I'll give you guys an example. It says, this, verse 4, it says, every bed on which the one who has the discharge, so men, lies becomes unclean, and everything on which he sits becomes unclean. And then it also says in verse 16, now if any man has a seminal emission, he shall wash all his body in water and be unclean until evening. As well as when women and men have relations, it talks about that as well. And what is referring to about uncleanliness is about them entering with these discharges to the tent of meeting, or to the sanctuary of God, to the tabernacle. They couldn't enter that at all. And I'm reading from the Amplified Bible. Of course, you guys could use different versions, and if you guys need help of which version is the best for you, please comment or message us, and we'll help you out. I honestly like the Amplified Bible version because it uses the New King James Version 1960. However, it adds their commentary from Bible scholars and theologians. So it's very interesting, and we get even linguistic scholars commenting as well. So if we go to verse 31 of Leviticus 15, it says, thus you shall separate the Israelites from their uncleanliness, so that they do not die in their uncleanliness by their defiling my tabernacle that's among them. Remember, everyone, the tabernacle is a very sacred and holy place. Remember, God is glory. God is perfect. He's the holy of the holies. So we can't just enter where he is, right? The famous saying is, right, if we enter God's presence, we die, and that's true. So he has these orders to protect us. So it says here, separation is from Hebrew to English. It says the meaning of the Hebrew of separation is uncertain. Another possibility is caution about the Israelites. Okay, so it could also mean caution, like, maybe look, don't get too close, right? So that was very interesting, and my insights from Leviticus 15. Now Leviticus 16 is the law of atonement. So atonement, if I mispronounce, or atonement, it means when there is forgiveness from God, and this is where the holy priests were able to be a mediator with the people of Israel and with God. And it says there's like these specific instructions for Aaron, which is the older brother of Moses. Remember, he was the designated holy priest, and his descendants as well, because they were Levites, and those were the people God called upon to have that duty for the people of Israel. It says in verse 2, tell Aaron your brother that he must not enter at any time into the holy place inside the veil, the holy of holies, before the mercy seat, which is on the ark, or he will die. For I will appear in the cloud over the mercy seat. So again, it's that idea with God's presence being so holy. He can't just enter whenever he feels like it, or whenever, like, oh, March 5th, I gotta go. No, there was actually a designated day. And I'm going to read you what the Amplified Bible commentary says for verse Leviticus chapter 16, verses 2 to 3. It says, the high priest was permitted to enter the most holy place only once a year. The Day of Atonement was the most sacred of all the festivals, and the prescribed purpose of this inclusive sacrifice was to atone or forgive for the sins of both the nation and the individual believer, and in this way reconcile God's chosen people to himself. Only by carefully following all of God's instructions could the high priest enter God's presence and live. And another word for the mercy seat is also called the propitiatory. Propitiatory. So any English scholars, please help your girl out. That's the beauty of being bilingual, and as also its challenges. Now, has any of you heard the word or the term scapegoat? And I'm sure we've heard it in a very derogative, in a very negative way, right? So the scapegoat in the Bible is the following. The scapegoat was, I'm just want to find the exact verse so you guys can refer it later on. Got it. So it's Leviticus chapter 16, once again, verses 9 to 10. Okay. And it says, then Aaron shall bring the goat on which the Lord's lot fell and offer as a sin offering. But the goat on which the lot fell for the scapegoat shall be presented alive before the Lord to make atonement on it. It shall be sent into the wilderness as the scapegoat. And then I want to just read you this one more verse. Bear with me. Verse 22, that goat or the scapegoat shall carry on itself all the Israelites' wickedness, sins, problems that they committed, as I would say, carrying them to a solitary or infertile land, and he shall release the goat in the wilderness. So if there's a goat, and they put this goat in an infertile land, and we know goats are vegetarian, so they eat what? Grass, shrubs, flowers. The goat is going to eventually die. It wasn't killed, but it will eventually die, right? Unless the goat is a very lucky goat and goes to a fertile field, which I doubt a bit. So that is where the term scapegoat comes from. And unfortunately, now in today's society, we don't use it in this positive way. Like, wow, a scapegoat, someone that this animal or that represented all the sins of God's people to be isolated, right? Kind of like what we're trying to do with this virus, to isolate it and to, eventually have it destroyed. So it's very interesting how history and the way we can contaminate and even destroy beautiful meanings or different meanings that had different purposes, and now it's very different now, right? If we heard like, oh, you were the scapegoat, we know that's like an insult, right? And I have just one more comment for Leviticus chapter 16. If we scroll down to verse 29, or if we go to verse 29, it talks about the annual atonement, which is the following. Verse 29 says, this shall be a permanent statute for you. In the 7th month, so roughly in the Hebrew calendar, that was in nearly October, on the 10th day of the month, you shall humble yourselves by fasting, and do not do any work, whether the native born or the stranger who lives temporarily among for you. And what the Amplified Bible Commentary has this, and I want to emphasize this because at Seventh-day Adventists is something we do emphasize in our churches, and fasting could be interpreted differently. So I'll get to what I'm trying to say. It is assumed by many, so in that verse I mentioned about fasting, that humbling oneself is a reference to fasting. But if so, there's no reason to limit the idea to that. The rabbis taught that it was forbidden to eat, drink, wash, and anoint oneself with oil for the hair, put on footwear, or have marital relations. Fasting was defined as eating less than the volume of a large date and drinking less than a mouthful of liquid. Wow. And we know many of us, due to diet restrictions, due to health conditions, due to also God can't impose something on us, right? That's why we have the beautiful gift of free will. However, the Seventh-day Adventist Church does emphasize on fasting. If you're able to do occasional fasting with nutrition, go for it. Make sure you talk with your medical provider as well before you engage in that. But you can also fast by not watching so much TV, or by not hearing so much secular music, or by maybe cutting off. So a lot of people who know me, there's a certain food item I love, I will have to cut that out, right? Maybe you'll cut out meat. For those who eat meat, I'm a vegetarian, so I have a different diet, right? Maybe it's just reducing the amount of what you eat, fast foods, or it's reducing maybe not being stressed, maybe not using your anxiety as your first approach in problems. Maybe it's trying to just relax, being more mindful. Maybe it's reducing being critical or judgmental. Okay, so that is my insight with Leviticus 16. And to start wrapping up, Leviticus chapter 17 was the blood for atonement. And the blood for atonement says, in verse 3, any man from the house of Israel who kills an ox or a lamb or goat in the camp, or kills it outside the camp and has not brought it to the doorway of the tent of meeting, or to the sanctuary, to the tabernacle, to offer it as an offering to the Lord before the tabernacle of the Lord, that man shall be guilty of bloodshed. And the Amplified Bible commentary says, at this point, the Israelites were not permitted to eat meat at will. Wow, okay. But after the animal was offered as a burnt offering, most of it was returned to the owner as a gift of God. And I'm going to stop right there, and I really want to urge you to please read Leviticus chapter 17. It has amazing insights, and I'm going to just quickly summarize this one and one more, and that's it. It's amazing how back then the livelihood of Israel was animals. So it showed how even though they're presenting it to God, God still gives most of it back, which is what we do with our paychecks or our salaries. And just one last thing, in Leviticus chapter 17, it says that Israelites were not allowed to eat the blood of an animal because that is the soul or the livelihood of it. And that's where the blood of the animals will help Israel have that intercession with God and God's forgiveness. So we're going to keep that in mind. Remember I said we're connecting Old Testament with the New Testament. The blood means life. So, all right, everyone. Have a great night, or have a great morning. Have a great day. God bless you. And keep reading the Word of God and keep sharing it with everyone. Bye-bye.